Hello everybody, I'm Rusty. I want to welcome you to Island Breeze Tropicals. So today we're going to be talking about potting soil for bromeliads. So why is it important that we get the right potting mix for our bromeliads? Well, primarily it has to do with one thing, and it has to do with rot. If we use the wrong potting soil and it's too heavy, if the aggregate sizes are not that different, then what's going to happen is it's not going to shed water. It's okay that it's damp. It's not okay if it's soaking, sopping wet. How come? Well, the reason is that bromeliads are herbaceous perennials, fancy name for a non-woody plant. So trees are woody plants and they have bark, and that bark acts as a skin that protects them from microorganisms that want to eat them. Bromeliads don't have that. Now I'm going to try and get this up in there, and you'll see right here where my finger is, that is called the apical meristem, and that's where the leaves come out. And if it's soaking, sopping wet around the apical meristem here, what's going to happen is microorganisms that love an anaerobic environment that are already endemic to your potting soil are going to attack this plant and they will rot it. Water kind of doesn't rot anything. It creates anaerobic conditions, and there are microorganisms that love to eat plants that love anaerobic conditions. So that's what we want to get rid of. So what is the best potting mix for your bromeliads? Well, what you want is different aggregate sizes. That means from small to large, and what that does is it allows water to percolate through the mix and not have it be soaking, sopping wet. Now I'm going to do a close-up of this and show you why this right here is a really, really good potting mix. Now, I'm not going to recommend anything that's out there on the market. You can do that on your own. They need to be porous and have different aggregate sizes, but you can also make your own. So this is a commercially available mix, and as you can see, it has a lot of bark products in it. It also has peat. I think there's a little bit of perlite in there, not much. I'm going to spread this out on a white piece of paper so that you can see just how different the aggregate is. So I hope you can get an idea for the different sizes of the aggregate in this. As you can see, it does have bark particles and it has milled peat. Now remember, milled peat is peat moss that has been broken down into very, very small particles, which by itself would not be good for your bromeliads, but when mixed with bark and other aggregates, it does just fine. So let's say you don't want to buy a commercially available mix, or you can't find anything that satisfies you. You can amend soil to make it so that it drains. Now, this is ordinary peat, but this is not peat moss. This is milled peat. And it's not real good for potting mix by itself. How come? Well, because it takes 5 forevers to get it wet and 10 forevers to get it dry once it does. It can get really, really soggy. Now, it's not that it's a bad material, it's just that it is milled and the particles are really, really small. Will the real peat moss please stand up? This is real peat moss. Real peat moss is not the milled variety, and it's kind of hard to find this, but you can see that it has really large chunks, which makes it a pretty good potting soil as long as we don't try to break it down. So I'm going to give you a close-up and show you what this looks like. So this is the difference between milled peat, which is on the right, and would the real peat moss please stand up? That is on the left. Take a look at the difference. All it is peat moss that has been ground up, and as such it doesn't do such a good job as a standalone potting mix for your bromeliads. or quite honestly anything else. So let's say you want to make your own potting soil. Let's say all you have is milled peat. Now that's okay, but you're going to have to amend it so that you have different aggregate sizes. How can you do that? Well, here's one thing that you can use. This is coconut husks. They're really, really good to use for a mix because what they do is they will hold some moisture and not allow it to get soaking, sopping wet at the same time. Why don't we take a close-up and see what this looks like? This is a close-up of the cocoa husks. It's really, really hard to see. I don't think I can get the camera close enough to show the porosity of it. Now, cocoa husks can be a little pricey, so what can you use? Well, here is some orchid mix. This is orchid bark, readily available. And as you can see, it comes in different sizes, which makes good aggregate size. And you can mix that in with your peat. Why don't we take a close-up look at it and see what it looks like? This is orchid bark close up, and it looks much the same as any other bark does. Now, you may find that orchid bark can get to be a little expensive too, so you can use ordinary pine bark. Now, sometimes pine bark comes really, really big. This is a smaller aggregate, makes it easier to use. There's also something called pine fines. They're a little hard to find nowadays, but they're a lot smaller than what you see here. Now, what I'm going to do is do another close-up. I'm going to show you this. And this is pine bark. Now, this isn't the great big nuggets that you see in the stores. This is smaller. There are inorganic mixes that we can use. I've never been a big fan of them because they don't give anything to the plant as the roots colonize the pot. But as long as they hold the plant upright so that you can keep water in the cup and they remain moist, your root system will grow in those just as well. Here's an example. This is lava rock. I'm trying to get the sun out of there. And I'm going to do a close-up of that and show you how porous this is. So this is standard lava rock. Now, lava rock comes in all sorts of different sizes. You don't want the big stuff. The important thing is that it holds your bromeliad up, and your plant's roots, even though they will grow in this and take advantage of the porosity and the moisture that this holds, will not derive any nutrient at all from this because it is not organic. Another alternative are clay pebbles. I think the new acronym now is LECA. Anyway, they are extruded clay, and you can see this right here. Now, one of the drawbacks of this is that it makes it a little difficult because these are more round in order for the plant to sit straight up. Sometimes you have to fiddle with it a little bit to get it right. So why don't we look at this in close-up? Now, as you can see, the clay pebbles, or LECA, are different sizes. They do stay moist. They can be a standalone, but remember they are inorganic. So the root system, even though it does differentiate and will take up nutrients, is not going to get any nutrients from this where it will from some of the organic mixes that you might use. So the lava rock and the LECA, or the clay pebbles, really don't make good amendments if you're going to be making your own potting soil. They can work as a standalone. This is something else that you can use, and this is perlite. Now, this is really, really small, and I would not use this. I would go probably with a number 3. So this is really small. I would go with a bigger size of perlite if I were going to use it to amend the soil, but I would use this in Congress with the other amendments that you use. So anyway, guys, that's it. So remember, whether you use a mix that is already pre-made or you want to make a mix on your own, don't be afraid to do that. Have fun, experiment, see what works best for you. Remember to check your plants, check the potting soil, and do it regularly. You don't have to do it every day, but about once every couple weeks, check to make sure that it's not breaking down and that it's not getting soggy. And as long as you do that, you're not going to have plants that rot on you. So no matter where you are, I hope your sun is shining. I hope you have an island breeze blowing. You ought to keep growing and have some fun. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.